Yeah, indeed. Blues Brothers, Everybody Needs Somebody to Love. Got talking about that because we were talking about Sam and Dave, our superstars today. And our US correspondent, Rich Reynolds, in the studio, went to see the Blues Brothers before the film.
I did. I saw them in the summer of 1980 at the Merriweather Post Pavilion in Washington, D.C., and they were spectacular, absolutely spectacular.
Oh, well, I'm just jealous, totally jealous.
Matt Guitar Murphy and Blue Lou Marini and Tom Bones Malone and,
awesome.
Alan Rubin and a bunch of the guys.
Love it. Did it have the same energy that came across in the film? It's difficult to push that onto the silver screen, isn't it?
Yeah.
But they really
did. They had in live, they had, they had Paul Schaefer playing keyboards, which they didn't have in the movie. So
okay.
No, they're just sensational.
Love it. Down to business straight away. 90-day pause on tariffs is the first story you've selected today. Taco abounds yet again.
This is what we go from the Blues Brothers to this. I mean, it's kind of a come down, but yeah, it's the only reason I wanted to bring this up right off the head is that this is. It's current. It's the latest thing, but it is tariffs, and it is something that is likely to change in the next week or so. But yeah, it looks like the cost of Chinese goods is going to be put off for at least 90 days, and they're going to try to work something out. But every week we talk about this, and every week they're trying to work something out. So might as well just kind of move on from that. The tariffs are going to be between 10 and 30%, and so things are going to be even more expensive. So
he says that more than 75 countries have been in contact to try and renegotiate trade policies.
Didn't he say 200 countries? More than 200?
Was there? I don't know.
That's what he said. One time he said more than 200 countries.
I don't know. One time he was saying he was going to Russia on Friday. Does he realise Alaska went back to them? I don't know.
He thinks that's going to be part of the deal.
We were looking at this morning as well. I wanted to mention this at the outset as well. The latest inflation figures. Are tariffs having an effect, however?
Yeah, this all came down in the past hour, and what's being reported is that the levels of inflation are at 2.7% from a year ago, which are the highest they've been in 5 months. So all of the tariffs that are being applied are starting to come to roost. The only places where in the states where the costs don't seem to be affecting people yet are in the auto industry and gasoline and that thing. Everything else, textiles, shoes.
He's already fixed the oil price, though, so that's
right. That's right. That's right. So yeah, it's the costs are going up almost 3%. It's a lot.
That's a big number, though.
Yeah,
in the shopping basket.
It is. It really is. When you think that everything that cost you $100 a year ago, which was a lot, is now going to cost you $103. Thereabouts, it is a very high amount, and the one problem is that it's going up even more past that. So I don't know where we're going to be a week from now, 2 weeks from now. So
we'll find out 3 weeks from now, certainly, because we're not going to be here for the next couple.
But if you're looking to buy shoes, if you're looking to buy dairy products or any kind of food, tobacco, coffee is up considerably. And that's where people are feeling. I am not a coffee drinker, so I don't really feel it, but I can see where that would be a huge, huge problem. Okay, the job report not looking good either.
Nope. No. All right, then, let's go to where we've been hearing, what we've been hearing about most over the past few days. Trump says he'll know if Putin wants a peace deal with Ukraine in their meeting within a couple of minutes.
Well, I think that's really true of a lot of times where you meet people and you're doing some sort of a deal. You can tell immediately which way the wind is blowing, and my feeling is that I don't know what Putin is going to be giving up. I don't think he's prepared to give up, but Trump says that Putin called the meeting. Putin said, yes, I'll fly to Alaska for this. I'll come to the United States. So we will see what happens. I think that the wind could change on this, but I think not having Zelensky in this meeting is problematic.
It's pretty much what the whole of Europe is saying as well.
Yeah. And the whole of Europe is correct about that. It's, to have a meeting with one person who is not vested in this and one who is vested is really problematic. And I would hope that at a certain point Zelensky is going to be invited to this. That being said, I don't know what your opinion is on this. I don't see Zelensky bending on this. He's already been quite public by saying we're not going to.
Well, his hands are tied.
We're not right. We're not.
The Constitution doesn't allow him to divvy up the country when it's been taken by a foreign aggressor or not. He has to go to Parliament. Parliament have to make a decision on that front, and or a referendum of the people. So Trump saying that he's peed off with Zelensky for not agreeing to this is not in his power.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. And I can't see Zelensky giving up any of his land and saying all of a sudden this part of Ukraine is now going to be part of Russia. I don't see it happening.
But it's also the message that it sends as well, isn't it? Because, if you allow Trump to keep Crimea and Donbass and maybe, give the rest back, he'll just come for it again at another point because nobody does anything about it. If you let him have what he's taken by force, he's just going to do it again.
When he took Crimea, what was it, about 10 years ago?
2014.
In 2014, everybody says.
Sadly, Obama didn't stand up in the way that we would have liked.
He did not. No, he did not. And that was the first brick in the wall. And now this is where we are right now. I don't see when all the votes are counted and when this thing is done on Friday, I don't see any great movement in this. I would be very, very surprised. I hope to be pleasantly surprised that's
well, we all do.
I want him to succeed. I want this thing to end. So does everybody else. But I'm not sure I see it.
Meanwhile, EU leaders, as I mentioned, have jumped in and been defending Ukraine's freedom ahead of this summit. Of course, the worry is that they'll come out of it going, yeah, he gets that, you get that, because Trump keeps saying they're going to divvy up land. Either way, Trump wins, doesn't he? Because he gets the mineral rights either from Russia or from Ukraine, which is probably where he is on the whole deal, right?
That's right.
I heard him say that he's not going to make the deal, but because he wins either way.
That's right. Things are absolutely going to be swinging his way. They're going to be a little bit better. And I think what's happening is the world is saying right now that no matter what happens, Putin is the big winner in this thing already. I saw a lot of analysis that said, well, possibly Trump should have waited a little while because, that Russia's economy is in tatters. We know that. Everybody in the world knows that. The European Union knows that. And so the longer that it goes on, the longer that the EU waits on this thing, the worse off Russia's going to be, and the more bargaining power the U.S. and EU and Ukraine have. But we'll see what happens on this thing.
The good thing is that Europe at least are united in their unanimity about saying, look, you can't just go and divvy up a country and reward the aggressor. Vladimir Zelensky, actually, since you were traveling, has been posting on social media and saying that Russia is making movements indicating preparations for a new offensive. He warned that the Russian army isn't preparing to end the war, but making movements that indicate preparations for new offensive operations, whilst thanking EU leaders for their support. He said it was critical that unity of views isn't threatened. He urged partners to put more pressure on Russia, but rather concerning that they are noticing troop movements and groupings of particular areas to perhaps start another offensive or continue.
I'm not at all surprised.
Right. Like you said, we've got to wait till Friday, see where that goes. Okay, on the way with our US correspondent, Rich Reynolds. Plenty more for us this afternoon. We'll take a look at the way that Trump has been talking about Washington, D.C.
Martial law.
He's already taken control. US correspondent Rich Reynolds is with us this afternoon, taking in all things US of A, where Mr. Trump has seized control of Washington, D.C. police. He's deployed the National Guard. He's in control, don't you know?
Yeah, well, D.C. has been a very troubled area for many, many years. They had a very corrupt mayor a number of years ago. Now they've really kind of cleaned it up and turned things around. The amount of crime, the amount of robberies and murders and the worst things that are happening are really on the decline.
Yeah, well, the figures we looked at in the last 5 years, it's dropped by 50%.
I know.
Which is, that's pretty impressive.
This was kind of surprising when he stepped up and said, I'm going to put the city pretty much under martial law. I'm going to call out the National Guard. I'm going to increase the amount of police. When D.C. clearly is getting their act together and things are a little bit safer on the streets, there was somebody who was beaten up the other day that Trump either knew or knew of, and this man is kind of the flashpoint for this whole thing. The one thing that's not being talked about, except on American media, is that the city is 62% minority. It's either African American or Latino, and so that's where a lot of this is coming from. So people who are in those communities are looking, saying, well, you're kind of picking on this. Jeanine Pirro, who we know used to work on Fox and is a very hardline right-wing, said, yeah, the numbers are coming down, but from where? Those numbers are entirely too high. Another thing that has happened in the past hour is that Trump has gone public by saying, this is just the start. Next is going to be San Francisco. Next is going to be Los Angeles and New York and Chicago. All these cities have one thing in common. They're all controlled by Democrats. And so what he's doing is he's aiming his finger at all these Democratic-controlled, very, very ethnically diverse cities to try and get those numbers down and try to come up with a reason why, hey, I'm going to call in the police, the National Guard, and we're going to kind of stomp on people a little bit.
It's a bit bizarre that he's going for this now, but perhaps it's meant to be a distraction from other things, do you think?
Well, the fire hose, as we talk about every week. It's like so many things going on. The whole Epstein thing is really not working in his favor. As we just discussed, the whole idea of inflation is very, very problematic. So for him to call in the National Guard it makes no sense at all. The National Guard, as Americans know, is meant to help people out in case of an emergency.
Well, like disaster relief. They're not police. They're not police people.
These are all people that work other jobs. This guy,
and they don't have police training.
They don't. They're doctors. They're lawyers. They are broadcasters, and they all of a sudden they have to put on their uniforms, and they're trained for that, but they are not primarily soldiers. And so for them to show up,
weekend soldiers, you would say.
Weekend soldiers. Mm-hmm. That's a good way to put it. I've known a lot of people who are members of the National Guard, and they do great work.
And certainly I've worked with a lot of people, from British and American in lots of different places, and they do as good a job as the main military do.
Of course. So
So on his Truth Social, the homeless have to move out immediately. We will give you places to stay, but far from the capital. The criminals, you don't have to move out. We're going to put you in jail where you belong.
We just don't want you standing on the street when I go to play golf.
Yeah,
that's what that whole thing was.
The street all messy.
He was blunt about that. When I go to play golf, I don't want to see homeless people. You can't just take these people and throw them out. A lot of these people are homeless, and we got into a discussion off there about why America has so many homeless people. Not just America, but it is a huge problem there. Because of the cost of living, because of the cost of health care.
Because of no jobs?
No jobs, but
because of the economy. Hang on.
Yeah, wait a minute.
Isn't that what the politician and the presidents are meant to be doing? Yeah. Sorting out the country from that aspect so that, people wouldn't be on the streets, they wouldn't be begging, they wouldn't be destitute if there were jobs, if there was a decent economy, if the top 1% weren't stealing all of the money.
Right, that's true. That's true, but to me, it all comes down to health care, and that the person who, has a medical procedure, they have cancer treatments, they have a heart attack, or they have something in the UK, in Spain, this procedure will cost you literally nothing. In the States, it might cost you $150,000, $200,000, $300,000, and nobody I know has that much money sort of sitting in a bank account to go, oh, it's okay. Suddenly I got ill. I was in the hospital. I was in
a lot of people end up homeless because of that sort of situation in the States. Wow.
Yeah, that's what happens.
That's awful.
Is they all of a sudden they're turning around and they have a sudden procedure. And the hospital wants their pound of flesh, and they want $200,000-$300,000, and that's it. I mean, that's your life savings if you have that much, and so that's enough to ruin you right there. That is one of many situations that people get themselves into. But I contend
no fault of their own,
no,
in some circumstances.
No, it's not. So, would we all like it that people were not sleeping on the street? Mental illness is a big thing too.
Yeah. Well, I think
that's a completely different discussion.
Right across the planet, we decided that care in the community was the best thing for people with mental health problems.
Yeah,
I really don't think it is. But for a lot of people, they're just not getting the help that they perhaps need. But that's true of countries across the planet. I'm afraid, not just the USA.
Well, Trump has really cast an eye toward people who are coming in across the border. That is a big problem. But Americans living on the streets, there are millions, literally millions of Americans living on the street right now, and mainly in cities that have more reasonable climates, like the southern part of the states, where they can, stay year round.
Well, where it's cold, you don't survive for very long on the streets.
No, you don't.
No,
you don't.
Okay. Well, you just mentioned about the crackdown on immigration and the like, and companies aiding Trump's immigration crackdown are seeing huge revenues.
Yeah, there are quite a few companies that are building these jails. They're building these containment facilities, and they are seeing huge stock price raises. So, things are. There are people who are doing quite well thanks to Trump's policies. So, without getting into names, so.
Okay. So we did mention this, and there are a couple of stories around today on the Epstein situation. First of all, the judge who has rejected the Trump administration's request to unseal grand jury testimony from Ghislaine Maxwell. Then this is protecting those who gave evidence and the jurors in the case, right?
Yeah, this is a grand jury, and when a grand jury is convened, it is top secret. Nobody knows the names of the jurors. Nobody knows what anybody says in there. There's a verdict is rendered past that. And what happened was when Ghislaine Maxwell spoke and gave testimony, that was a grand jury. And so that material was sealed. And the judge in New York right now has said, no, we're not opening that up. We're not revealing what was revealed in the Ghislaine Maxwell thing. This is not. They're not talking about. They're not talking about Jeffrey Epstein. What was said back in 2019, 2018, that area there. They're talking specifically about what was revealed in hers. And I know there are a lot of people that would like to have. They're looking for the names. They're looking for the either Trump's name or Clinton's name or whomever.
But it was the Trump administration that requested that this be unsealed, wasn't it?
That's right. And so what's happening is the judge, rightfully so, in my estimation, said, no, I'm not going to open that up for you. And that's that. And he also turned around and said, well, what you're looking for is not necessarily there. If you're looking to hang somebody because they went to Epstein's Island, according to her, they said there are no names on this list, so you're kind of barking up the wrong tree. Whether he's telling the truth or not, he's a judge. I assume that he would be telling the truth in this particular case. But yeah, as far as Ghislaine Maxwell and that grand jury testimony, that's a dead issue right now. The next stop would be the Supreme Court. They would take that up, and I don't see the Republicans ramming that
defense
thing.
of the institution rather than the casing.
Correct.
In point. Meanwhile, it didn't stop J.D. Vance attempting to link the Democrats to Epstein. He was doing his best to do that anyway, but it looks like nobody fell for his ploy here.
Yeah, well, J.D. is out there saying that they're the reason the Democrats don't want to talk about this, which is not true because the Democrats do want to talk about this, is because there are Democrats. There's
on the alleged list.
Obama, allegedly. There's Obama and there's Clinton and other Democrats on that list. But in doing so, if there are Republicans involved in this affair and then the Republicans who are on that list, that's going to look bad for them. So J.D. is kind of really trying to ram this home, and to what to what effort? I mean, why is he doing this? He can only make himself and make his friends look bad and this sort of thing. So if I were JD, I would just shut up and let it.
There are these, like you say, it looks like a bit more on the whole attacks on the likes of Obama. Didn't Trump? We talked about this a few weeks ago when Donald Trump was accusing Barack Obama of treason, trying to get him prosecuted.
Yeah, that's not going to go anywhere. I'm not going to even.
It went away again.
I'm not going to jump into that pool because he's the only one out there talking about it, and I don't think anybody in their right mind is accusing Barack Obama of treason.
All right.
At this point, that I can see.
Away from the Trump administration a little bit, Texas floods, which washed away debris and dirt, apparently also uncovered 100-million-year-old dinosaur tracks. Didn't know Trump was around that long ago.
Well, I know he's old, but we're going to kind of inch our way towards some good news here because we do have some really good news stories coming up, and this is one of them. There were 135 people who lost their lives in those Texas floods, as we all know, and it was all very, very tragic. So what they did was, now that all that earth is washed away, a volunteer found 15 large 3-clawed dinosaur footprints scattered on a crisscross pattern across an area called Sandy Creek. So that's all really, really interesting. This is like a third.
So 115 million years old.
Yeah, 115 million years old. That's back when I was a boy.
Yeah.
So that was a long, long time ago. So that's one little bit of good news that they uncovered.
Okay. Also, this isn't great news for some people, I suppose.
No,
AOL are going to shut down their dial-up service.
How many of you out there have dial-up?
You know?
Yeah, I know you have dial-up at your house. I know.
I'm trying to remember the last time I had dial-up.
But apparently, as early as a year ago, there were 2 million people who had dial-up, and I have to assume these are all people who live out in the country.
Okay.
And they don't
There's
have
no internet.
With no internet, and so that's what they.
You've got to get it via a wire rather than through the air.
Oh, I don't think but I've always lived in larger cities, so I do know that it's been 20 years since we've used.
What about these people though? What are they going to do?
They're screwed. I mean, they've either got to.
Use Starlink.
I don't know. Yeah, there's some sort of uplink that they could try. I've got to believe that more and more, because it's only a couple thousand now. That's what they said. Only a couple thousand people have used dial-up.
Elon should just get his hands involved and sort it out for those poor people who've still got dial-up.
You get to the point. I have a very good friend until recently had AOL.com. He had that was his email address, and I thought, oh, good Lord, what else are you holding on to?
Yeah, we had to explain to the kids the other day what floppy disks were, that's a bit worrying.
I know.
Just looking at us blankly, we're like, okay.
And they sent you these disks, and you picked them up, and they gave you a certain amount of hours for free. And, oh, when you think about it now, good Lord.
The enterprising owner of Trump Burger.
I don't even. Did he get approval from Trump to use his name on
I
a
don't
burger?
know, but he got a lot of coverage out of it, didn't he?
He did. And he opened it. He had a chain. He had
Trump Burger restaurants, yeah.
Yeah, it's a Texas chain, and they've got a number of stores. A guy named Roland Bainey, he was a restaurateur, and he co-owns the chain of Trump Burger restaurants. And guess what?
Either way, ICE got him.
ICE got him. So now he's in custody. He overstayed his welcome. He was indeed an American, but he stayed a little bit too long on his visa, and now he's doing time.
He was from a Lebanese national on a non-immigrant visitor visa, which he was meant to leave February this year.
Yeah,
but didn't.
Yeah, stayed a little bit too long, and we know that's a real problem. So no more Trump burgers for anybody.
Okay. And another week of and another medical breakthrough and fresh hope for pancreatic cancer patients. A new vaccine showing promise in early trials, stressing the early trial situation. But it's a terrible thing and affects a lot of people. So 20 pancreatic cancer patients and 5 with bowel cancer were in this trial to help the body's immune system find and attack cancer cells. It's looking good.
Well, we know from everything we've read over the years, and adults have certainly known this, that pancreatic cancer has some of the worst survival rates, and that regardless of what other kind of cancers had, when somebody gets pancreatic cancer, a lot of times that did not bode very well for that person who got it, and a lot of times they passed away within a couple of years. Now, this is absolutely great news, and I wanted to include this today because we have so much bad news, and it's the same thing over and over again, tariffs and Trump and blah, 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 that this is really a little bit of good news. And something we were talking about off air was that years ago, and I'm talking about 30, 40, 50 years ago, if you got cancer of any kind, that was the worst possible news you could possibly get. And now so many people are living longer and longer and longer. And it's...
And the fact that you perhaps hear a lot about people having cancer is the early detection rates as well, which means, of course, in a lot of cases, earlier detection means a much better survival rate. And the numbers, the stats stand. You know, we are doing so much better with cancer these days than in the past. And, survival rates are a hell of a lot more than they were than when you were talking about.
It's certainly, I don't think we can go out there and say it's good news, but God bless the people who are in research and who are doing this, because in this, just with one shot, 68% of the 25 patients that were being tested developed a very strong immunity to this the tumor proteins, and so these.
It's not a personalised mix either.
No.
Actually, which means that therefore, it can be made in bulk. Lots of people can be administered quickly. So let's hope that those trials continue to show
a little bit of good news,
good things. A lot of good news for a lot of other people as well is that Taylor has a new album. We'll be talking about that shortly. Meanwhile, though, let's talk about Mr. Hegseth, and I asked you for a quote from your good lady,
from my wife,
about this. Pete Hegseth reposting a video that says women shouldn't be allowed to vote. It's not something out of a Margaret Atwood novel. It's not something that's going to be happening soon, I would think. Or maybe not.
No,
in today's America.
Mr. Hegseth is not only in a position of power, but he is
not yet.
He is very right. He is very religious and believes very strongly in what his pastor says. And this religious organization, which is an Idaho-based Communion of Reformed Evangelical Churches, CREC. The man who is quoted as saying that women should not have the vote also said that homes should vote as a group. So in other words, the vote would be not an individual person, but a household. He went and said that I passed this on to my wife, who had an opinion that I can't share. But she goes, I don't know. You can no matter what he says, you can still hear his big mouth, no matter where. So I wouldn't put too much faith in what he's saying. But this guy just talks and talks and talks.
But he's the U.S. Defense Secretary. He's like number 3 or something in the administration.
Yeah, he is. He's very, very powerful. He just tends to speak off the top of his head. I don't think he really
speaks out the other end.
Exactly. I don't think he really thinks at all about what he's saying and what anybody really cares. But people do listen when he says stuff like this. I don't think any woman,
that's the worrying
no woman
thing.
that I know wants to go back 120 years or 100.
All right. Something that we had on the agenda for last week, which we didn't quite get to, there was a number of pieces that have been published. Trump's mental decline is undeniable. What happens next, which was, covered by a number of different news outlets, and also about the fact that he has trouble completing his thoughts, and there are doubts about his mental acuity. The Guardian had a great picture of him and his number 2 as Don Quixote,
and Sancho, right?
And windmills and the like, which tickled our fancy. But it's a pretty serious situation, of course. The leader of the free world, effectively.
The reason a lot of psychologists are pointing to this is because of a thing called confabulation, which means
lies.
No, it's more than lies. It's
Embellishment?
It's like thinking you say something enough times that
then you believe
you
it.
believe it's true, and that's what confabulation
Show
is.
me your truth and I'll tell you mine.
Exactly. And what the thing that they pointed to was him talking about his uncle who worked at MIT. He was at MIT and he had 3 PhDs, which he did not. No. He taught the Unabomber, which he did not, because the Unabomber went to school at Harvard. And it's
so confabulation. What they're concerned about is the fact that it's one of the clearest signs of early dementia.
Yeah, when you make stuff up and then you embellish by building a whole story around that, and you enlarge that. You say, oh my. He could have easily said my uncle was at MIT and he was highly respected, and just left it at that. Nobody would have said no. Anybody who's a professor at MIT, you're going to have to think has got some smarts. But then he had to go a couple of steps.
Difficulty with mathematical concepts as well, and they drew the straight line to the fact that he was going to make drug prices go down by 1,000%.
1,000%, meaning
600%, 500%, 1,500%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of it is exaggeration. I remember talking to my a family member who is a Trump supporter. He said, "Yeah, we know he exaggerates in the whole thing, but that's the thing we like about him is that he's kind of a regular guy because, when people talk, they sometimes exaggerate and that sort of thing." And I said, yeah, but they're not the leader of the free world. And so you have to be somebody who should be careful about figures and about talking about their relations, especially now with the internet. You can check on anything.
He's fact-checked constantly.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what confabulation is constantly building up these stories and then embellishing, thinking nobody can check on these things. When the fact everybody is checking on these things.
Of course, Joe Biden was hounded, particularly by Trump, for the very same sort of issues.
Exactly. So this morning I was reading an article that said that there's a possibility that Trump knows he is slipping. And that's one of the reasons why he says, we ought to give the same mental acuity test to AOC to other people who are in the Congress. Mainly, it's amazing that these people are all Democrats, but we should give the same test to them that I got and I passed in flying colors.
Yeah, he passed for flying colors.
When was the last time you took an acuity test?
I don't know.
I don't know. I took an IQ test when I was in college.
This goes back to that situation that you were talking about the other week, wasn't it? When you were like, I watched that interview where he was sat there with Ursula von der Leyen and was speaking about windmills, driving whales loco and wind energy killing the birds and stuff like that.
And how the Europeans, and he kept taking it higher and higher by saying that the EU felt that windmills were problematic and the EU wants to get rid of windmills. Nothing could be farther from the truth, of course. So.
All right. At least we managed to get it in at least this week. But so what did you make of the big news this morning? I mean, now, not only Taylor Swift appearing on her Bo Kelsey's podcast, but a new album.
Bring it on.
Life of a Showgirl. Something you know a lot about.
I thought for sure she was going to release at least one cut from the album today.
No, we didn't see anything.
We did not see it, but...
so Travis Kelce's podcast, I mean, for her to appear on something like that even,
Yeah.
That's a big thing.
But I think it's great she's got a new album. I wonder if she's going to sell a couple of them. So
seemed to do quite well last time.
She's doing quite well for herself.
All right. It's on the way at some point because we don't know the exact date yet. But she's very, very good at the whole social media management, judging by the fact that the last album produced a #1 hit straight away. Not because she just had Post Malone on it, but because she's Taylor Swift. And there are a lot of Swifties out there, including yourself.
I love her.
Our U.S. correspondent, Rich Reynolds. You deserve a holiday.
I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Take 2 weeks.
See you in September.
Take 2 weeks.